Howdy, y'all. Welcome to the Marty Smith podcast here at Outsider. Wes is with me. Hello, Wes.
Howdy, guys.
Happy New Year. Travis is with me. Happy New Year, Travis.
Happy New Year to you guys, boys.
Brandon is with me. Happy New Year, Brandon. There he is. A nice salutation. It's been quite a month of December. I was all over the place. I just got home from the college football playoff. I was at the Orange Bowl where Wesley Blankenship's Georgia Bulldogs just put a whooping on the Michigan Wolverines. They will.
I don't know if I'm happier about that news or if Travis is happier about it.
Yeah, they'll face Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide once again in the college football playoff national championship in Indianapolis at Lucas Oil Stadium on Monday, January 10th. And I think it's going to be another all-timer. It was obvious to me being there at the field level that Georgia was pissed off. They were very tired of hearing how Bryce Young and Alabama decimated that defense led by Nakobe Dean. They were not going to be denied this time. And I'm going to tell you guys, having been there for the sole purpose of being embedded with and covering the Michigan Wolverines very closely, I had a lot of confidence in them, and they had a lot of confidence in themselves. I felt a great cohesion among that team and just a great brotherhood. But they went out there and they ran into a buzzsaw. Georgia was prepared. Georgia was pissed. They had a phenomenal game plan. If you watched how that unfolded, I thought Kirk Herbstreit did a phenomenal job on the broadcast of really laying out why and how Georgia was prepared for what Michigan wanted to do. And here we are again. Georgia still has the same hurdle to jump, and I can't wait to be there in the building to see if they're able to do it against Coach Saban and the Tide. I'll let Wes go first since he's an alumnus in Athens, what that win meant and what your expectations are.
Yeah, I didn't really know what to expect going into the game because I'd watched two games of Michigan football. It was Ohio State and the Big Ten Championship, and I thought they looked pretty explosive, a little bit more explosive than I might have expected them to be. I thought they were more of a running team. That was kind of the narrative on them. But seeing them in those games, I thought they would give Georgia a test defensively, especially after the Dawgs were exposed somewhat by Alabama. I'm just curious to see now in this rematch how much of the SEC championship game was truly Georgia coming out and playing their worst game of the year and Alabama playing its best game of the year. And it only took one game to get that rematch. So I can't wait to see what happens too. I've seen enough Georgia Alabama through the years. I'm numb to the defeat, but I'm going to be over the moon if Georgia finally pulls it off.
I would just like to say on behalf of the state of Ohio, to Wes and to the Georgia Bulldogs, thank you. Because suddenly those fans have just disappeared. They've gone into their little holes, and they're now bringing up victories against Ohio State in 1902, and that's usually what they do. And so thank you for kind of shutting them up. We appreciate it. Let's
not lose sight of the fact that the Michigan Wolverines did boat race the Ohio State Buckeyes in 2021. I just want to make sure that Travis remembers that game. I understand how thrilled you are that Michigan got beaten. I'm sure the entire state of Ohio feels that way. But it was a great year for Michigan, a phenomenal year. They did beat Ohio State for the first time in the Harbaugh era, won the Big Ten in convincing fashion for the first time in the Harbaugh era. And I want to say this as the person that was there, the person that was doing the interview. I wrote this on social media. As much as I hate Twitter, I knew that was the platform to say it. Jim Harbaugh was all class after that game. They got beat up. They got whooped. and he still came out and offered me time and insight that he didn't have to. And there's a lot of people on social media who are saying that's his job. There's a lot of people on social media saying, that's part of what a head coach does. And yes, I can see why that would be your perspective, but he doesn't have to. And not only did he do it, he did it with a great message. It wasn't, he listened to what I asked him. He considered what I asked him, and he answered it really well. And I'm grateful for that because he doesn't have to do that. And I don't care what y'all's perspective is on him. He said to me leading up to the college football playoff, I thought it was a really insightful thing. He said to me that we were actually talking about Ted Lasso. And it's a relatable character for Coach Harbaugh because people think he's weird. People think he's goofy. And they judge him as a result of that. But as they get to know him, they understand the authenticity. And there's probably a lot of Ohio State people who are rolling their eyes, and maybe some colleagues of mine who are rolling their eyes, but that's the truth. I mean, look, I've been around the guy. I've been overseas with him. I've been to Paris and Rome with him. I've seen the way that those players respond to him. So you can have your opinion and I'll have mine. I thought what he did for the Michigan athletic department staffers who had to take pay cuts because of the COVID-19 pandemic was beyond admirable. I thought it was badass. And so y'all can criticize him however you want. You won't hear me do it.
And I will say one thing to his credit also, like, it's easy for people to say, oh, he took the pay cut to stay there because he didn't want to get fired. But that's a big kick to his ego. He took that pay cut, reworked his staff, and put together a hell of a staff, offense and defensively. And the trajectory of that program has suddenly changed. You think of where they were last year compared to right now, and it's night and day compared to where it was. And to do it that quickly is impressive.
It sure is. And
Travis,
Aiden
how
Hutchinson,
difficult was that for you to say that?
Did you? I think I got like a frog in my throat. That was a painful compliment to give to him, but I have to give it to him.
Anheuser-Busch Eagle shirt on though, so that's worth a lot of points.
Yeah, but I got the Ray Fulcher.
I do too.
On, yeah,
we're like on the we're kind of on the same thing
Y'all are
today.
Fulched up.
The second that they won the game, I was like, I know what hat I'm wearing on Monday. I mean, simple as that.
Now the Dawgs will head to Indy to face the Tide again. Yeah, I mean the SEC championship game was very surprising to me. Being there and watching how that unfolded, it just really stamped home that Bryce Young is a difference, such a difference maker. The way that he was able to dissect what Georgia wanted to do and run that quick strike passing offense, and it wasn't just dumps underneath by any stretch. I mean, he hit home runs to J-Mo Williams. He hit home runs to John Mechie before Mech got hurt and tore his ACL. So he utilized everything at his disposal. The interesting thing to me as we look forward to the national championship is Alabama didn't run the football against Georgia in the SEC championship, but they ran wild in the college football playoff against Cincinnati. So to me, it still comes back to the same exact thing that the SEC championship did. How does Alabama's offensive line perform against Georgia's front seven? Because I'm going to tell you something, man. Like, seeing Nakobe Dean, who's the best linebacker in America, I consider Will Anderson a different a different type of player. To me, he's kind of more of like an edge rusher, hybrid kind of guy, whereas Nakobe is a bit more of a traditional linebacker. Seeing him before the game and just like spitting snot and fire and nails, and he wanted to come out there and make a statement. He was tired of hearing it. And it's not going to check. Like, they're still going to hear it all the way up until kickoff of the national championship. So, that to me, that's what it comes down to. Wes, what do you agree? What do you think?
Well, Nakobe, when he was recruited and signed with Georgia, Roquan Smith had just left to go to the NFL, and that was the player comparison, was that he was going to be the next Roquan Smith. And, no one's going to show that as a freshman, but watching Georgia over the last couple of seasons, you've seen flashes of it. And in that Michigan game, in the Orange Bowl, I felt like Roquan was wearing just a different jersey. I mean, it looked the exact same. That play where he calls the little end around, and like it's not just his physical talent. It is how smart he is and how prepared he was and how prepared Dan Lanning had the defense, even though he's Oregon's next head coach. And look, they've got a strong staff around him with Muschamp and Kirby and Glenn Schumann as well. But Dean is the total package, and he's putting it all together at the perfect moment for Georgia. And he had those flashes against Alabama too. Alabama was just way better a couple weeks ago. So, yeah, I think this defense took a humble, lesson against Alabama in Atlanta after an undefeated season. It kind of sets up perfectly for Georgia. Now the slate is clean, and it's all about going out, having that same motivation, and how can you do it differently? How can you do it better? I mean, if you look at schematically what Georgia did against Alabama, I'm not an expert in X's and O's, but I've watched enough experts break down film since that game. And defensively, Georgia did a lot of things differently than they had done all season. And I don't know if they felt like, they were playing with house money or they needed to change it up because of how dynamic Bryce Young was. But the scheme that Georgia ran was different. So I don't know. I don't know if they get back to basics and they're more motivated. That combination, though, with just a week after that Orange Bowl, I think it helps Georgia. I think, ironically, the last time Georgia and Alabama played in the Natty, it helped the Dogs, or it helped Alabama, rather, that Georgia had that double overtime game against Oklahoma. Alabama didn't play in an SEC championship game that year. They had a week off, an extra week off than Georgia did. But now I kind of like the fact that Georgia only has a week before this game with Bama. Some of those same feelings, some of that same energy, I think can translate well. Now you just have to go out there and play better.
Well, I tell you, you're going to need to stop Jameson Williams. If you don't stop him again, like he did in the SEC championship game, I don't know if Georgia can hang around, because in a blink of an eye, he can hit the deep ball and he's gone. And then also, Jordan Davis cannot take a play off. I get at times you get tired out there. Like, he cannot, because at any point that'll be a big play. Like, he's got to be there every play that he's on the field.
Jordan's hurry up was deadly against Georgia, and I think it neutralized him.
Jordan Davis is a great football player, but to me, especially after talking with Mike McDonald, the defensive coordinator for Michigan, they were way, way more worried about Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter, number 88, for those of you who may not be huge Georgia followers, is a bad son of a gun and plays angry, and they run to the foot. Like, the thing about Georgia's defense that you watch them on tape, and certainly at the field level, they run to the football with bad intentions. And that's Kirby Smart. Like, that is players taking the identity and the personality of their leadership and understanding that they have a great opportunity at their disposal. And now the narrative shifts, right? So Wes said a minute ago that the slate is wiped clean. I don't know that I agree with that. And in this context, Wes, Alabama still hangs over them. And that 40-plus year drought still hangs over them. And here it is, right here, right? It's right there for the taking for them, but they have to jump the Alabama hurdle. It's fascinating to me. I did an extensive feature with the great Damian Esparza, my producer with the SEC Network, one of my feature producers, insanely talented. In the process of doing the interviews for that story, one of the ones that I did was with Champ Bailey, one of the greatest defensive backs who ever breathed. And he said something I found very telling, and that was the more Kirby wins, the more pressure there is, because there's that expectation of closing the deal. And that's coming from one of Kirby's former teammates and defensive backfield mates, and a guy who states that Kirby took a lot of interceptions away from him because Kirby was like the most well-prepared football player he ever played with and knew everybody's assignments all the time. But that's from Champ. Like, that's not coming from me. That's coming from Champ. So this week is an interesting time for Georgia and an exciting time. But I know Dawgs fans. I know how y'all are and kind of where your heads are. And
I think they need to
I don't know what
embrace
the
it.
weight of it is, though.
You have to embrace it because it's not the same. But when Ohio State played Alabama in 2014, it was Ohio State can't beat the SEC. And you have to just lean into it. It's like a bad hangover, and you say, like, you're never going to drink that drink ever again, and you're, like, scared of it. Georgia needs to go, whatever that drink is that they got hungover from, whether it's some, rum and orange Gatorade, make that drink and get drunk again on it and get over it. You can't sit there and worry about it.
That was the most Travis analogy in the history of Travis analogies.
What about the offensive side? Are you?
What do you mean?
I mean, I was gonna bring it up. Like, we haven't even mentioned Stetson Bennett's name yet.
Playing out of their minds.
You want to talk about some hits that would have killed us? Stetson stood up and took him too. And that throw to James Cook, man, if you watch Stetson, keep your eye off the ball. Don't worry about James Cook. Great game from Cook playing in Miami. That was an awesome story too. But if you watch Stetson, man, he gets tossed like a rag doll. Like, I don't even know when he knew that ball was completed. But he stood in there, and I don't know. I want to think that everything that happened against Alabama, that's what I meant when the slate is wiped clean. I mean, record-wise. I obviously know that the storyline, the pressure, I think back to when I was a kid, we couldn't beat Florida. And it feels the same way. It's like the Steve Spurrier ghost lingered in Jacksonville when Ron Zook was there. And it didn't matter who was playing quarterback for either team. Georgia couldn't win. And it feels the same way. And it's just going to take one time, I feel like, for it to happen. And I can't believe it's been since 2007. I mean, I bought a ticket as a freshman in college to that Georgia-Alabama blackout game, and they were trying to replicate the Auburn blackout game. That was a party the year before, and I went to that one too. And that was really the night I think that Alabama's dynasty started. You might look at the national championship game against Texas, but that night I think is when Alabama kind of told everybody, we're here, baby. And Saban established what it meant to be an Alabama head coach on the road in the SEC. And I've seen it year in, year out. I've been there for some tough ones. So I don't know. I want to think that Stetson built his confidence back up because he delivered, even though he got hit physically, even though he got hit emotionally all week, people doubting him, and the whole month of December, basically, after that loss to Alabama. So I don't know. Maybe he comes in with a little bit of a different mindset. Maybe the offensive game plan helps him out a little bit more, and he can shake some of those cobwebs off himself. I think it's, for a lot of these guys, it's at an individual level now because they've played Alabama so many times and not been able to win.
Wes and Georgia fans, I'm jumping off the wagon though. After we tape this podcast, Alabama's already number one, and no one's going to pass them. So I'd rather them just keep going rather than Georgia, make that another step forward.
As we sit here, Georgia's favored.
Okay, so you're the handshake is done after this episode.
Yeah, the hat's coming off, and
All right.
I'm never picking against Nick Saban until he just.
Why would you?
Yeah, like pick against Nick Saban, Alabama at your own risk.
I'm picking Georgia to win because I've put my part of my salary into a football ticket.
I want to just take a quick moment to share with everybody about this Christmas gift I got. I have a friend who's really like my brother. His name's Greg Morin, and he's been a great friend of mine for 20 plus years now. he's just a beautiful soul who has, he's a gentle giant. He's looks like he could play offensive line for the Patriots. He just has this beautiful disposition and patience that I don't have. I'm a much more intense person. And unbeknownst to me, when I was on the road at one point this year, he came over to my house and went in my storage facility over here. And he took when my grandmother passed away in 2012, I took her original 1958 RCA Victor turntable. It's a massive piece of furniture. It's like a huge table that has a top that lifts up, and inside the unit there is a turntable to play vinyl. The entire front of the unit is a massive speaker, big tube speaker with this amazing gold sheen over top, and it has these brass peg feet. It's just a gorgeous piece. If you ask me, Laney might beg to differ, but Greg came over and asked Laney if he could take it. And over the last 2.5 months, he completely rebuilt it for me. It didn't work. It didn't work. And I've always wanted to get it redone. I'm not capable. I don't have the skill set to do it myself. And Greg came and got it, and he rebuilt that thing for me. And I was in my bedroom preparing to go to Christmas, and I was actually packing my Orange Bowl bag. And Laney yelled at me to come to the front door, and I walked to the front door and opened the front door. I had 2 suits over my shoulder, and there was Kenny and Dolly singing White Christmas in my driveway on the tailgate of my Ram pickup truck. And I just was so taken aback, I didn't know what to do. It was a very emotional moment, and Greg's just standing there with a shit-eating grin on his face because he knew what it would mean to me. And it is just awesome, you guys. I can't tell you how amazing Desperate Man sounds on that unit, because it's just an awesome gesture by him. It's a family heirloom, and so I just wanted to thank him so much because it's very special to me.
Where does that sit now? Like, where do you listen to it at?
It's right there.
It's in
like
your
my
by your
bar,
bar?
as you can see, is right here. I have my Miss Pac-Man game right there, and then I have now the turntable, the RCA Victor, right down here on the floor underneath a big clock. Thanks to Greg for refurbishing my grandmother's turntable. And now let's get to Willie. Look, this guy is a national treasure. What I love the most about him is that he's so authentic. He knows exactly who he is. They built millions and millions. They built what?
An empire.
Empire. That's a good word. To be some old country boys who just love to hunt down in Monroe, Louisiana, and become a global phenomenon is a testament to what they built. And Willie and I both have personal service agreements with Pit Boss Grills, and we were together actually at the SEC championship game having dinner the night before the game, and I just said to him, "Hey, I want to get you on my podcast, man." He's like, "Anytime." So we hit Willie up and had him on. He was actually on a duck hunting trip with Jason Aldean and
Adam LaRoche.
Adam LaRoche and Luke Bryan and who the hell knows who else.
And we get maybe the greatest story about pranks gone wrong in the history of pranks from Willie.
It's a good one. So here y'all are. It's Willie Robertson on the Marty Smith podcast. This is a gentleman that I admire a lot, who I'm starting to get to know a little bit better because we both have an awesome relationship with the Danson's Company and Pit Boss Grills. Somebody I've admired for a long time, brother. Thank you so much for your time. How you doing?
Marty, one day I'll be as famous as you, man.
Shoot, I'm paying rent in your world, big dog. I ain't got bandanas that I'm making money off of yet. When I get to that place, then I'm in Willie's world. You know, I've long admired not only your success, but the way you've managed that success and your convictions, not only about your faith, but your family and all of those things. And I've always wanted to ask you this question because as a good old boy who grew up being passionate about something, and then all of a sudden that something makes you famous, and I mean freaking famous. What comes with fame that you can't prepare for?
Well, I don't think any of it you can prepare for. Fortunately for us, Marty, we had a little bit of taste of it. So we were making VHS hunting tapes back in the 80s. So we kind of got good with cameras. And then we had another show on the Outdoor Channel, which was really fun. So there was a lot of preparation where we were, by the time you hit that big spotlight, we were more prepared, I guess, than others. And so the other thing that helped us, Marty, was being family. We all kind of rose together, which was great. And so it wasn't, most famous people I know, they're the only famous person, and then they hire everybody else. And so, but with our family, we all kind of came up together. So, stayed in the same hometown, just try to stay grounded and stay where we're at.
I know you've done a trillion interviews about it. I know you've done books and all manner of things. But I am so intrigued about that familial dynamic and how you guys maintain relationships because, listen, man, you can get fractured when maybe, hey, Willie's getting this attention, but I'm putting in the same work that he is, and why am I not getting that? Well, I see you laughing, but that's just the truth, man. I've seen it happen with so many families. How did y'all manage that stuff?
We put in some stopgaps beforehand, and our faith is number one. And so as long as you refer back to your faith, it's going to, the Bible's going to teach you how to interact with each other and how to be a better person. And so through it all, we knew we were going to stay true to that. And but we did put some stopgaps. We had a phrase, Uncle Si came up with this thing, and it was kind of to remind us, of if we felt like somebody was kind of getting out of hand. Uncle Si came up with "Remember the Alamo."
Okay, explain.
Remember the Alamo. We are like, okay, I got you. We need to kind of check ourselves. And other things we did was, the way we, structured payment, all that kind of stuff. It was a lot of stuff was the same, no matter what. So you couldn't look and say, well, hey, I'm doing this or that. We went into it knowing, hey, this is what we're going to make. This is what we're gonna do. And and then we just had to cling to each other, and it was such a wild, crazy ride. I mean, it was just you became so famous, and it was so hard to blend in, and you just stuck out. It wasn't like a hat and sunglasses. Now that I've cut my hair, I actually can maneuver around a little bit better. And things that I really enjoyed were just tougher, like SEC games or whatever. I'll never forget. We were at A&M, LSU. I think Johnny Manziel's last year there. LSU got him, and I was with the governor of Texas, and he goes, "Hey, let's go down the field." And I thought, man, that's probably a bad idea. He said, no, it'd be cool. I got my guys, and so. We get down, when we got off that elevator, and this is at LSU. I mean, this is Baton Rouge, and so this is
home.
Dynasty. I'm telling you want to talk about sworn. And the governor has me, and he's like, we got to move. He was like my own little security guy. And so we got on the field, and he said, I ain't never seen nothing like that. I said, I told you, Governor, it's a popular show. So
it intrigues me. Your dad. And again, I know your story's been told, but some people might not have heard it. I thought it was amazing that your dad gave up the game of football, and I want you to get into how talented your father Phil was as a quarterback and walk us all the way through the Terry Bradshaw story because, my dad's guy was Terry Bradshaw. I grew up watching the Steelers because of my father, so it's extra cool for me. But he bounced from all that because all he wanted to do was have anonymity and live in the woods. And then the next thing you know, he's the most famous son of a gun on the face of the earth. So walk us through that whole thing from his time at La Tech when he just said, Done.
Yeah. You know, he rarely talks about any of that. And so he's such a unique person. He doesn't really go by. He's not the guy who's like, oh, back when I was playing, none of that. And so you really have to pull it from him. And I asked him one night, I was like, you know, why didn't you keep with that? He said, well, I didn't have that jock mentality. He said, I used it to get my education, and that's what he wanted to get was his football, was his degree, and which he went on to get his master's degree. And so he just said he just wasn't that into it. And as far as how good he was, what's crazy is Bradshaw was the number one pick, and just think about that for a second, like the number one pick in college football. Think about today what that would look like, and he was starting ahead of him. So I don't know. Obviously, I wasn't there, but you had to be pretty good to start ahead of the guy that was going to go number one. And he would say, yeah, I had a quick release. That's what he said. You got to get out of your hand really fast. And so, but yeah, then he goes on, and it's weird because they both kind of got that. Terry obviously went on, and we didn't like Terry Bradshaw. We didn't like him because he kind of poked fun at Phil in his book and said he would show up with squirrel guts in his pocket, and so he's kind of making fun. So for us, we were like, oh, we don't like this guy, and so we liked the Dallas Cowboys more, and so yeah, we didn't like him. But then I had the weirdest, like when our show hit, Phil and I went out. We were on Jay Leno's show, so we were at LAX. Phil and I are walking in the airport, and I look up, and there's a person coming out, and he grabs my dad. Now let me tell you something. I would never grab my father. I don't even touch my father. Like, he's kind of a scary guy, right?
Country strong, baby.
This man has picked up Phil from behind. It's Terry Bradshaw at the airport. And they hadn't seen each other since college. And Terry happened to be at the airport, sees Phil, picks him up. And so we started having this conversation, and it was amazing because they start talking football. And then I never forget, then Joe Montana walks up. So now I've got these three guys talking.
What, this is at LAX?
People around us, right, like taking pictures, and it was just it was a pretty cool deal to see them two catch up, and then later on they went to a game together, and so it was cool. But Terry says if Phil would have stayed with it, and if he wouldn't have, he may not have ever seen the light of day. So yeah, cool. It's a wild story that them two were together, and actually they were not that far apart as far as where they grew up, over around Shreveport.
How do you define your dad's influence in your life?
He's the real deal. He's, when he made this life change, and so fortunately for me, I didn't see all the bad, the bad years and bad times. But man, when that dude when he got on the gospel, he just became a different person. It was really just like he just went all in. And so growing up with him, he was always more concerned with his faith and telling others about the Lord. He felt like he was such a bad person that he wanted to kind of redeem that and look out for others. So, we would have Bible studies every week. Somebody be coming, and people would bring people down there. They were some rough cats. They would say, hey, take them to Phil. Maybe he can straighten them out. And so I grew up, seeing that and just seeing a real authentic person. And it was cool once Duck Dynasty, once I took over the business to actually bring the company up and, reap the benefits. So it was cool to be for him to be able to enjoy that. Because I don't know if he would have ever, business-wise, he wasn't that great at business. He had a passion for hunting, and he was selling these duck calls, but I don't know if it would have ever taken off. And so once it was nice to be able to see him kind of gain that from a company that he started and, from scratch. And we were able to take it to newer, higher levels.
So for those of you watching, you may notice that Willie's video has gone down. Where did I do? Did I drag you out of a deer stand? What are you doing right now?
Yeah, I'm in a house, but I don't know what happened.
There you go. There he is. He's back.
I'm at Adam LaRoche's house. Adam played Major League Baseball.
Oh, yeah. What's up, dude?
So, yeah, we got Jason Aldean, Tyler Farr. We got all these Georgia boys in camp, and so I'm really wearing them out because we were at the SEC championship game together. And by the way, I called that game. I said Alabama was going to win that game.
How did Aldean respond? I don't know if he's in the room with you, but I imagine he's still depressed that his Bulldogs got boat raced.
Well, I think they saw it potentially as a positive because, they still made the playoffs.
Yes.
but maybe they learned some things about themselves. But yeah, they definitely got hit in the mouth on that game.
How would you describe the impact that your business degree had? You were just mentioning kind of lifting the company to heights, unbelievable heights. Yeah. How would you define, what was your vision and why was it able to happen and come to fruition?
Well, I didn't really. I mean, the last place I thought I'd work was at Duck Commander. I grew up doing that, and I was like, I'm out of here. I'm going to do something different. And so went off. I actually ran a little Christian camp that my wife's parents had started, and that's where they worked. So I did that through my 20s and didn't have much money, but, was enjoying life and raising my kids. And then so I kind of came back to it, and I kind of looked at it from afar. So I was able to look at Duck Commander, and I saw Phil, and I was like, man, he's got this passion. I think we need to connect the dots. And so came back and asked Dad. I said, hey, I think I can, maybe help out at the company. And so I think for the first 8 months, I cleaned Mom's yard and did stuff. Like that was my job. And then so over time, I started getting more and more involved in it and did really every aspect of it. And so, I came to Dad. I said, hey, I think we need a website. And Phil's like, website? He said, hey, Will, tell them if they want to buy a duck call, pick up the phone. I said, well, Dad, I think they're going to be buying products online. He said, that's a crazy idea. If you think it'll work, And so I started all these new crazy ideas, which is a website and, and I was able to talk to the customers and, we just started growing it. And then reality TV was becoming a thing. And none of us watched reality TV except my wife. And my wife says, y'all need to do a show. And I said, well, I don't think do we do anything like, crazy interesting? And she goes, oh, y'all are not normal. You're not normal.
Just talking. All y'all got to do is talk, have a conversation.
Yeah. And so she saw that. And then we were approached by Benelli Shotguns and said, hey, let's do a show on the Outdoor Channel. We'll pay for everything. And, so I went to Dad, hey, they want to do this show. And Dad's like, it's a terrible idea. And I'm like, well, we could try. Maybe we'll sell more duck calls. And we did. It was successful. And then out of the blue, I get this email from a guy in Hollywood. He said, hey, man, I've seen your show. I think y'all got a really big show. And and so I went to Dad again. I said, Dad, now they think we have a big show. And he's like, oh, this will never work. Nobody's going to watch it. And I said, well, let's try it. And I guess the rest is history. So Phil would say he's pleased to say that he was wrong, but in the right way. So and then we took off, and man, it was a wild ride for sure.
Why didn't you want to work at Duck Commander? Were you one of them hard-ass sons who was like, I ain't going to take over Dad's business. I'm going to go do it myself?
I really just didn't see it, Marty. I didn't see an opportunity. There was only a few people that worked there. It wasn't like there was not a lot of money. And Dad was so passionate as far as ducks. I was like, you ain't going to ever out-duck that guy. I mean, he's like – yeah. So I just didn't see an opportunity really in that and just didn't I always thought duck calls were really hard to sell. I was like, man, I wish he'd have come up with like something with toilet paper or matches. That's a specific item.
You'd have made a mint during COVID with the Duck Dynasty toilet paper.
Oh, tell me about it. Even when the show started, we had a meeting, and so it came up about duck calls, and we said, do you think we should make more duck calls and have some? And I said, and it was me and my brother. I said, no, we're not. Nobody's going to buy any duck calls, even from a TV show. My wife said, I think they're going to buy duck calls. And did they ever buy duck calls? Everybody wanted a duck call. We were running 24 hours a day trying to make all those calls and get them out there. And I'm assuming most of those people weren't duck hunters. They just wanted a little piece of the company. And so, it was crazy. But I just growing up, I thought I didn't know what I was going to do. And so, but I thought, ain't no way I'm going to stay here. And so, but as it turned out, I did.
What is the challenge? So I got 3 children. I got a 16-year-old son and 12 and 9-year-old daughters. You're a dad. You got a bunch of youngins. Mm-hmm. What's the challenge of raising children in the middle of the tsunami of all that fame?
Yeah, that was difficult. We had talked before about how, most everything that my kids did or are doing, I've done. I've got experience in that. Went to college, had children. graduated, jobs, all this kind of thing I've done. The only thing I hadn't done that they were in was actually be famous at a young age, and so I had no experience with that. And so that was it was tough. There were aspects of it that's tough. Even still, like we as we talk to our kids as they get older, we're still going through that. Man, it was difficult here. Like Sadie had a tough time because she went on and did Dance with the Stars at 17, I believe, and she's still in high school, and so oh man, she played basketball, and it was just tough. Like the fans would just get on her, and they'd have just say ugly things, and then like they would lose a game, they were all in there crying, and then they come out and there's 20 people in a photo, and so it was tough. But there was a lot of good as well. She took that and made that platform, and then she has more businesses than I have now, and so she was able to use that, and so it was really tough, and so we just had to, again, stay grounded, stay where we're at. We're in the same school, same town. Fortunately, we didn't have to move. It wasn't like we had to live in L.A. or New York. We were able to stay home and be around the people that we grew up with. And so, yeah, I mean, they could, they took that, and overall, I think they did well with it, and they were able to, capitalize on some of the aspects of it. And it was tough for John Luke. John Luke went to college, and he was like, Dad, I felt like everybody was just staring at me.
Fishbowl.
Yeah, it's just, and so that's tough when you're 18 years old. And again, that's something, obviously I didn't have that experience. And so, but we were all kind of, again, in it together. And so, I made it through.
People see the finished product. They see the hour that they see you and your family and the show on TV. They don't see the fact that you just shot for 25 hours or whatever in order to make that 30 minutes or hour.
Right.
They don't understand how much work it is. So I can't imagine how your day-to-day shifted when you guys decided to move on. What is your day-to-day now? How has that shifted? I just drug you out of a deer stand in nowhere, Missouri or wherever, so it ain't too bad.
Yeah, so we slowed down for sure. It was, I think for a while I just kind of rested. Was like, man, I'm, although you're still video and stuff, I'm here with Buck Commander. We're shooting, stuff for YouTube, and you have sponsors, and so you're still kind of in that. I just started my own YouTube channel. Where it's fun. Now I can you can be nimble. I can do the stuff I want to do, some comedy, some interviews, that I want to talk to people. And so I still enjoy doing that part of it. But yeah, the show is a long grind, just lots of days just to, it is, you're sitting around waiting and it's still a TV show, and so people, the nature of the show, they would get so mad. They'd come up and just chew me out, for something like, look, me and my mom are okay, or me and my dad are okay. We're not, they would get so upset with me, especially on the show, because I was kind of I was the boss, and so I had to kind of chew everybody out, and so, which made it funny, right? I mean, when we did the show, that was the natural part of the show. It's like, who's the boss? I'm the boss, which I'm not the oldest, and so it was unique of how our family dynamics worked, and we'd all get hot and bothered, and and we would have it out, and so, but it was always in fun. At the end of the show, we come back, we say a prayer, it's like, hey, no matter what. And, but Marty, hearing the people across the globe, that saw that needed that. There's so many people that I've talked to that's like, man, you got me through a really difficult time, when we lost our parent, or lost a mom, lost a dad, and so, we could all sit down around that show and laugh and just, and have that. So, and there were different family aspects of it. I think that even if people weren't that way, maybe they could aspire to be that way. We had people who started sitting down and eating together, or saying a prayer together, and so, so it was helpful. And I think people saw that and was like, man, that's what, there's some aspects there that we like. So
when you're right in the middle of it, you don't realize that you're offering people hope. Mm-hmm. And that goes for a lot of different contexts. I mean, those guys you're with right now, Adam playing ball, that was somebody's hope. Jason playing a country music show on Saturday night, that's somebody's hope. You and your family offering that example, and laughter, just laughter, unbridled laughter is hope. And I am blessed to be reminded of that at times as well. If I do a public speaking engagement, or randomly interview Nick Saban or Kirby Smart and make them laugh, somebody will be like, man, that was awesome. It made my day. And you don't think about it that way, but it's a platform that we're blessed to have, and I don't take for granted.
Right. Especially now. I mean, especially, it's just people have a hard time laughing at anything, and so, times get tough. And so, but yeah, you got to laugh. And there were those moments, those true moments, which I know you've done that as well. I've sat with children, on their last wish, and so I remember the first hospital room I walked in, and I started bawling, crying, but then I'm thinking, well, that's not what I'm not here. There's been a lot of crying going on. So I stepped out, I came back in and was like, I'm going to be the Willie you see on the show. That's what we're going to do. And we laughed or whatever. And so, yeah, those moments are, that's when it's real. And again, man, people are just so many people that encouraged, and we were able to then really shape that and then use that platform to continue that on, with writing books. And I mean, it wasn't all just about fame or making money. It was about actually helping people out and trying to teach things and figure out, how to people live better lives, and more.
Well, that's the self-awareness of knowing your blessings, Willie. That's what that is. That's wanting to pay your good fortune forward. Now, you were talking about the power of laughter and Buck Commander, and that brings me to something you and I discussed at dinner just a few nights ago. We have heard on the Marty Smith podcast Chipper Jones' side of blowing up the toilet. Now,
we went through that last night.
Yes,
now I remember who I was telling to.
We need to hear the Willie Robertson side of the prank gone wrong. Go. The floor is yours, General.
Well, let me tell you something. Them boys, so way back in the day, right here where I'm sitting, right down.
It was there?
Somebody had gotten a flashbang, okay, which is never a good idea. In fact, when I'm watching a movie or television show and I see one rolled into some crack house, I actually feel sorry for the people in the house. You have no idea how loud these things are. This thing was rolled at my feet, and it goes off. And if you've never been flashbanged, you can't hear and you can't see. Now, I was standing beside a gas stove. I thought it blew up. So I thought the stove had blown up. I thought there was for sure people dead. And I'm thinking I'm alive, but I got to get out of here. And so I start running as fast as I can straight into the wall, face first into the wall. So when I hit the wall, it knocked off a stone picture. That hit the toilet, broke the toilet in two. Now there's water everywhere. I'm on the ground. I end up on the ground spinning. All right, I'm just spinning like a dog that's been hitting the road, right? And I'm thinking, I made it. I'm alive. I mean, I'm really sore now. It hit my face. And I open my eyes, and I see a camera. And I thought, my camera guys, like, through the explosion, they're still rolling. Like, I mean, I was like, this is amazing. And then I realized I'm the only one that's being filmed, and this was all a big prank on me. And I got flashbanged, and so I was, needless to say, I was very upset. I went and packed my bag. I said, I will never come back to this place. I mean, they have taken it too far, and obviously years later we can laugh about it. We told it last night. We told the story last night about when they – I mean, that thing was intense, man. It was one of the pranks that, it was bad on me that night, but it was one of the Buck Commander – legendary stories.
I appreciate that you face the demons and you are right back there serendipitously right now as you and I chat. A couple more things I'll let you run. I know you guys are having a great time out there and getting a bunch of content of your own. What is your impression of Brian Kelly's Southern accent?
I have got to go down. I've got to get myself to Baton Rouge so that I can help him with some of the dialect. That was the funniest thing I think.
It's hilarious.
Me and my family. I said, "Oh boy!" And so that was that. That was kind of interesting. And so, he's gonna really have to win now. He's gonna have to win some ball games to make up for that. I don't know. Maybe he got caught up in it. Maybe he just got caught up and started like trying to speak the local speak. I guess
I've seen it happen before. I've seen, like, when I get around people who aren't from the South, I'm sure this has happened to you in all of your travels. If they talk to you for long enough, any appreciable time, they start to sort of adopt the way that we talk.
Right.
And it didn't take Coach Kelly but about 13 hours, and he all of a sudden was a Louisianan.
Well, he was drawing everything. He had his long draws out, and he was, that was that was pretty impressive. So I'm excited about him being there. I think, it'll be interesting to see what how that's going to work out. There's so much going on right now, and so it'll be interesting to see. So but I mean, hey, if you're the winningest coach in Notre Dame history.
You've done it.
That's a pretty big deal,
He's a really good football coach. I mean, he's a really good football coach. His process is great, and now he's going to be able to bring that process to a university that has Notre Dame's Notre Dame. You can recruit to Notre Dame just based on the amazing brand, but there are insane academic expectations at Notre Dame that some other Power 5 programs don't have. And the recruiting base in Greater New Orleans, of course you know that, if anybody does, is as talent rich as there is in all the land.
Yeah.
And so I think he'll do well. I mean, he jumped right into the lion's mouth, bro. He didn't go he went to the SEC West.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough conference, and now he can speak the language. So now he's going to be able to talk to these kids.
He can go right into those living rooms and talk to mama and daddy and boo boo and cuckoo and them and let them all know.
Well, the whole state is rich, and I mean Nick Saban knows that because he keeps coming over back to Louisiana and pulling all these boys over there to Alabama. Said I'd like to see more of them stay here, and so now he can walk in there and he can yuck it up with these kids. So. I'm pulling for him.
I think he'll do really well, and for you guys, I hope that's the case. It's a tough job. I mean, Ed Orgeron won the national title with maybe the greatest team ever less than 2 years ago as you and I sit here and chat.
Bye. Isn't that great? It was such
crazy.
A weird way it ended, too, because it just seemed like everybody loved it. It's like, no, we love this guy, but he's no longer the coach, and so I enjoyed him. I thought he was just a riot. I loved hearing his interviews, and obviously had the passion. And I was watching the Bengals last Sunday and watching LSU play.
Yep, you were.
There's our team. There's our guys playing, and so that was a crazy, crazy year. And so but I mean, it's there. The talent's there. And if you can win the West, it's a tough conference, and so I'm interested to see what happens. OU and Texas comes in. That'll be interesting to see kind of how that plays out. And it's a really hard conference, but that goes to show you what Alabama did this year. I mean, you can still end up being the number one seed. With having a struggle year. That was but I mean that's if you can go through them boys, you can make it.
Last thing, I'll let you run. You noted your new YouTube channel and whatever else you have going on. Like, with all you've accomplished and the platforms that you have at your disposal and the relationships that you have at your disposal, like, what still lives in your dreams, man? Like, what do you still want to do?
Yeah, I'm actually writing some books right now. A lot of stuff with faith and evangelism is something I'm really into. And so, I work a lot at the church, and so work with people and just trying to help people out there. I still don't, I never forget about that one. I always think about my dad. Like that's probably, some preacher got in a car and drove up to a bar in Junction City, Arkansas to try to straighten my dad out, and so, so I just think about that story, and had he not done that, my whole life would look different. And
Tell it. There's going to be people listening who don't know it. There's going to be people listening who don't know it. What is that story?
Yeah, so Dad was running this bar. He was, I think he had already kicked us out. I was little. I was just a baby, and he's just going down this wild lifestyle. And but his sister cared about him. She passed away recently, and she asked this preacher in West Monroe, Louisiana, will you go talk to my brother? And where's he at? And he's an hour, up in Arkansas. And so this dude does it. Like, he goes in there, walks in a bar, and sits down. He said, Dad's got a pistol. He's got a pistol, and he's got a giant Budweiser on the table. And the preacher told me this later. He said, I walked in, your dad said, what's up, preacher man? What you selling? And so this dude sits down and, shares his faith with Phil. And he doesn't immediately respond. He ends up getting in trouble, and the state police are after him. Phil's living in the woods. He was for months. He went out there. He was going to run from the law, and so by the time he kind of sobered up, and he came back down and found that preacher and said, "Can you tell me more about that story?" And so, and so at 28, he turns his life around. And so now, if you play that forward, Marty, now you got all of us kids. We're married. We have kids. Just on social media alone, I mean, Sadie's got millions of followers. I can track that back to them two right there. Him making this life change. My mother forgiving him, sticking it out in this marriage. Our whole life looks completely different. I can back it up to that one story of one couple, one relationship in southern Arkansas. And you'd have thought, well, there's, what could actually happen from this? Well, if you play it forward, millions of people all over the world have seen a show where it ends in a prayer, all that. I can go back to that time. If that doesn't happen, I'm living a whole different life, and so I'm, single mom, dad could have been in jail, probably was going to end up dead. And so, yeah, that's important. So I never give up on anybody. If there's somebody out there that you can talk to that can turn their life around and make this change, it could be not just for them, but for the kids, and change their life and how they're going to do. And so, so that's, I want to try to live that out myself as well and try to, not be the one who's like, would I get in the car and drive to the bar to talk to somebody?
It's an awful long way, man. I'm not sure.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think we're like, yeah, that's tough. But, I mean, thank God that guy did that. And he was actually instrumental in our lives for years. I ended up going to seminary, and so I actually studied under this guy. And so, and it was kind of cool that I was able to see actually the person, the passion he had, and then see Phil and his passion for people and, lost people and people who are screwed up and got damage, whatever it is, because you can turn that around, and there's always hope in that, and so I just so I want to try to portray that more and just say, hey, man, there's hope, and so we can show somebody something better.
I love it. There is hope, and you're doing a great job, man. The way you live your life with kindness and so much passion, and being willing to share. I appreciate your time so much, and just so you know, Aldean somewhere, he probably just slinked off to some other room, and he just started writing, "What's up, preacher man? What you selling?" We're going to hear that on the radio here in about 18 months. I appreciate you.
All right, Marty. Great seeing you, buddy.
Thank you. I love your spirit, brother.
All right, so, again, thanks so much to Willie, man. I love his spirit. I will tell you that as a man of faith, the way that he lives his faith inspires me as well. I try very hard in my life. God has given me an amazing platform to try to inspire people and tell stories and share other people's stories in a way that might inspire other people. And one of the things that matters the most to me is when somebody walks up to me or sends me a note that they appreciate the way I wear my faith. And that always intrigues me, quite frankly, because I don't just go out there all the time talking about my faith. So it matters to me that the way that I live my life seems to impact people that way. And there's no doubt that that's how Willie is. And that it's inspiring to me. And golly, he's funny. So let's break down like what he and I were talking about there with Brian Kelly's brand new Southern accent. Wes, how would you rate Coach Kelly's Louisianan accent? I mean, he'd only been there a day and a half, so that's a pretty quick transition.
I think it's more of a testament to the people of Baton Rouge that they speak and carry themselves in a way that immediately rubs off on the new football coach. So I think it's more about the people of Baton Rouge than it is about Coach Kelly. I haven't heard him speak in a few weeks. I mean, by now he's probably driving
like Coach O.
a big fan boat through a swamp somewhere wearing overalls. I think by now he has been ingrained in the culture, and I'd love to hear him talk now. He probably does sound like Coach O. You're right.
I bet you he knows how to make gumbo. His boudin balls are like the best ever. I bet he's just all the way into Louisiana style.
You think he's been to Cafe Du Monde yet?
I mean, they probably have something
baguettes yet.
They probably have something named after him on the menu, right? I mean, with the accent that he had after one day, I can only imagine what a couple weeks have done.
Well,
It's
I'm going to
something.
go down to Baton Rouge and see if I can have a conversation with him about it because I thought it was awesome. I thought it was hilarious, but I should give him a hillbilly accent tutorial. Even though people think mine's fake, hell, we're brothers of the cloth.
There you
I mean,
go. Yeah, you guys both have fake accents.
There you go. You guys have the accent chip on your shoulder. Just show him the clip from The Office where Andy explains the Savannah molasses dripping off of your tongue. It's different. There's different regions, different dialects.
So before we go, speaking of the South and North, national championship is in Indy, as we said. Marty, you know
India?
Indy.
It's in India?
Indy.
Oh.
Did I say? India? Either way, it's in Indiana and Indy. Marty, you know that area more than probably most. Where do the fans need to go from Georgia and Bama? What's like the one restaurant or bar that they have to go to?
Well, everybody's going to go to St. Elmo's.
There's your first one.
Everybody. I mean, it's classic Indianapolis, and it's their shrimp cocktail is a must try. I can, as a veteran, I'm going to give you guys some advice. When you take that shrimp and you dig it into the cocktail sauce and you take the bite, make sure you kind of keep your mouth a little bit open and your nostrils a little bit open, because if you take a standard bite and you close all that up, that horseradish wins. That horseradish is nuclear. It will melt the membranes of your nasal passage and they will fall out your nose if you do not, like, just kind of breathe out through your teeth as you're chewing. I'm not saying like chew with your mouth open. Just kind of keep like this as you're chewing, because I promise you, man, I was there for the Big Ten championship a couple years ago when Ohio State beat Northwestern. And I went to St. Elmo's, and Joey Chestnut is a buddy of mine. And Joey was down the street doing a St. Elmo's shrimp cocktail eating contest where he ate like pounds and pounds and pounds of shrimp cocktail. And then he came over to do a live shot with me on SportsCenter.
Oh, my God.
He looked like he was pale. He looked like he was going to puke all over me. And I don't know how like hot dogs on the 4th of July are one thing. Like I could see getting up for that. But eating all that shrimp cocktail, man, with all that horseradish sauce, I mean, I would need Depends in a bad way.
Maybe he wears them.
Maybe he does.
It's a sponsorship opportunity.
I tell you what, though, a lot of fans, I think, are nervous about it being in Indy. That town,
Nervous. Wow.
I think the cold and just it's not a typical college bowl site.
Oh, I'm not
but
nervous.
that town knows how to throw a party, man. They don't mess around.
Well, I mean, look, they've hosted the Indianapolis 500 for 100 and however many years, 105 or 6 years, 7 years, I don't know. And they've hosted Super Bowls. Like, they know how to do it. And, I mean, whatever.
Did you see
we went to Santa Clara, California a couple of years ago.
Did you see the JW, the giant like sign they put on that already?
No.
It looks impressive with the 2022 CFP logo, plastered on the JW like they always do for whatever
I wonder
event.
if that's where I'm staying.
You're either staying there or what's the is it the Westin?
Weston. Mm-hmm.
How late do you think it'll be till you know what hotel you're staying in?
Well, I'm traveling as we sit here. It's the 3rd of January. I am currently scheduled to not travel until the 8th, which means the morning of the 8th is when I will decide to look and see where I'm staying. I imagine I will either be in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and or Athens, Georgia at some point before this week's over. All right, boys, that was fun. I appreciate y'all taking the time. I love spending time with both of you, all of you, Brandon, you. By the way, wait, before I go, Brandon had a story he wanted to tell like 2.5 or 3 weeks ago that we just blew right through and bulldozed over Brandon. And let's close the podcast with whatever Brandon's story was. I think it might have been about the White House Christmas ornament, which is awesome.
I don't even know. Let's see if he remembers.
Actually, it was a little bit more heartfelt than that. But I wanted to tell you, I think you guys know this, but my brother-in-law is the guitar tech for Hardy. And so he was not far away from him when he did the interview with you. And over Christmas break, or I guess probably right before we last got together, he said that he asked Hardy about it, and Hardy just said that was like by far the best interview he's ever had. And he just said he would do it again anytime. He said it was just, he was able to be just so open and so relaxed, and he was just singing your praises. And he was like, man, that was just like by far the best sit down talk I've ever been in, by far. So I thought that was pretty cool. I wanted to share it with you.
That's a hell of a tease too for the people, because we haven't aired it yet. So
it's breaking news.
Yeah,
that's right. I forgot.
Will that be next week, Travis? Probably?
It'll be next week, unless I can get a guest on from one of the respective schools that win the national championship. If not, Hardy will be aired next week.
Well, that is a good tease. We'll have Michael Hardy. All of y'all know his great work, and he's really established himself in Nashville, not only as an artist, but certainly as a writer. And what him and Morgan Wallen have done to make Hillbilly cool again, we get into that. I can't wait for you guys to hear that conversation, man. Brandon, thank you for sharing that. Dang, that's it's awesome to hear, man, because you hope that the individuals with whom you're chatting are having a good time. We're asking a lot of them to take the time to chat with us. We're a brand new outfit. We're working to find our way. And so for those guys to take the time to care and answer our questions and be engaged is one thing, but for them to enjoy it is a whole other thing entirely. I'm humbled. That's awesome to hear. Thank you. So that's coming, if not next week, then the week after that, guys. Make sure you tune in for that again. Thank you so much to Brandon, Wes, and Travis. Thank you so much to Willie Robertson for taking the time. Thank you to our law enforcement officials all over the country, working hard to keep all of our communities safe, our first responders and our firemen for running into the trouble to try to save other people. And the United States military, we are full of gratitude for you. We live in the greatest nation. We are free, and it's because of your sacrifice. Thank you so much. Y'all be good. We'll try better next time around. This is the Marty Smith Podcast at Outsider. Be good, friends.